Crazy for Cult podcast. I'm Vanessa Cozini, and I'm crazy for all things cult. We're uncensored, unscripted, and slightly unhinged. There will be spoilers. There may be blood. Today with me, just as last week, is my bestest best friend of all time. It's Jonathan.
Hello, everyone.
So, even though we introduced you last week, let's reintroduce you. Best friend since 3rd/4th grade.
Since she was 6.
Everything happened when I was 6.
Exactly. Best thing that ever happened to you, by the way. Sorry, just saying.
Oh, yeah. So, you are my gamer friend. You really, truly are.
Yeah, because I think I'm actually the only friend that you have that plays almost not every video game, but plays video games consistently.
Doesn't make Batman go oof.
That's just because you play him wrong.
I don't make Batman go oof. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Yes.
So, you've been a video gamer since when? When did you start playing?
Since I was 3.
Since you were 3. Did everything happen when you were 3?
No, it's just the joke is my mom actually never wanted us to actually have video games in the house.
Your mom didn't want you to have Pokemons in the house. Your mom didn't want you to have
long
Harry
before that.
Potter
She never wanted us to buy an NES, any game systems. Okay. My grandma actually bought it all for us. So she's the one who actually got us the NES when we actually graduated. It was actually my Uncle Paul who ended up getting it for me. So it was just that kind of thing. But we also originally, before we actually got it for ourselves, like she had it at her house. So like we'd go there and we would actually play the games there, and then I'd read all the Nintendo magazines back when Nintendo was.
I do remember that. I think I got you one for your birthday once because I didn't know what to get you, and I just remember you always had those, so I got you.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of what it is. I started very young, and I think if you start that young, it goes from there, because if you really like it, as ridiculous as those games are looking back at them, I mean, at the time, they were amazing. And some of them even have concepts and characters that we still love today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know it's going to sound a little darky, but yeah, I was totally into Mario as a kid. Okay, little fact about me. The reason I didn't become a gamer in years to come was because I was the youngest and the only girl. And that means, get me past this level. Get me past this level. No, give it back.
Kind of impeaching on the Batman story a little bit. A lot, actually.
Yeah. So, because I used my brothers to get me past the really difficult parts, when they moved out, I couldn't be a gamer anymore because nobody got me past the difficult parts.
Not entirely the definition of a gamer. Some of these persons have been trying to watch the.
Okay, second disclaimer about me is I know the plots of Final Fantasy because I enjoy watching him play, and I always ask him once he's like beaten certain things to show me all the clips. I do that.
Yes, she does.
So yeah, I'm a total dork about that, but I still enjoy the medium. The medium of it. The medium of it, thank you. Words are fun. So I really enjoy watching it, and I enjoy it for its technicality and its interesting stories and how things work. I just am not good at it. So there's my disclaimer.
You're good at some games. It just depends really what
I'm good at games that I can't die. That's what you said last week.
Well,
I can quote you.
You wonder if we got a Wii U, you could play Kirby games and you'll never die. Little puffball.
I want to play Mario Kart.
Okay, I'd probably die in that game. I'd give you that. I'm bad at driving games. I don't play them.
So, I'm good at Fable 2 and Fable 1. I like games that are story-based and you can make choices. It's also why I was really into the R.L. Stine books where you got to choose which chapter to go to. I fucking love those. That needs to make a comeback, by the way. So, we're talking about games. Surprise, surprise, viewers. We are talking about games, but more specifically, we're talking about movies. So, the 2 movies we're reviewing today are Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. Yeah. So I just always want to go like this because that's what they look like in the game before you do something. They're always like
Yes, they're moving in a fighting pose. Yeah,
it's kind of dorky. It's kind of dorky. I love it. So yeah. So without further ado, let's go into our first movie, which is. This is my new jam, by the way. This is my workout.
Yeah, I was gonna say, weren't you gonna say that you're gonna exercise to it?
Oh yeah, totally gonna. This is gonna be my exercise jam. I mean, feeling you're like pumped up listening to this. Yeah, definitely. So, Mortal Kombat came out in 1996. Took me a minute there because I've been looking up dates for like a whole bunch of other stream of things and I lost my train of thought. So Mortal Kombat came out in 1996. Street Fighter came out in 1995. And there's clearly a winner here. It's Mortal Kombat. And let's talk about why we think Mortal Kombat is a great movie.
Well, at the end of the day, the core, it's actually a better adaptation of the game. So if you actually look at the game and you put it on film, the story carries over because everything about it flows. When you watch this movie, well, you can actually identify maybe a plot hole here and there. They're small, and the story basically flows seamlessly on film compared to the first ones. I mean, prior to both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, the only movies that we had that actually were based off video games were Super Mario Brothers, Double Dragon. I cannot think of any other ones right now off the top of my head, but those are the two that I know. Those are both bad movies. Really, really bad. And horrible adaptations of the actual game themselves. Like, had basically, you name the characters. That was for the most part it, specifically with Mario Brothers. Double Dragon was a little bit better, but then when it actually came to Street Fighter, and that was actually, even though we're doing the first one, it was the best film at that time for a video game compared to what had passed before it. And then entered just a year later, Mortal Kombat.
So, for me, I have now seen both of these movies. He thinks that it's a crime against humanity that I had not seen them before this week.
It is. I mean, come on. Especially because she kept going on, oh yeah, no, I've seen it before. I know this.
Okay, I think I saw Double Dragons, to be honest with you. From certain things, because I was like, I thought I had seen this movie when I was a kid, but I think I had seen Double Dragons.
Maybe, because and I just don't know how. Like, my sister and I growing up, my sister and I are freakishly linked. We love this movie. Like, we went out, we bought it on VHS. Like, I'm actually technically the one who found it first and bought it, and I was like, mine. And then even when the sequel came out, like, it was something, and I had sworn because I knew I had talked about it with her. I assumed she had seen it at some point.
Sometimes I'll pacify him and say I've seen something when I haven't.
It's okay, I do the same thing to her.
This is why we're best friends.
Exactly.
So,
because we know the other is lying. We forgive it and look the other way.
So, Mortal Kombat, for me, had better acting, better actors, better plot, better fighting, actual fighting. It was also a better adaptation of what the games were, because I do remember the games. I do honestly remember. I have 4 older brothers. I remember the games.
I never said you didn't remember the games. Just that you apparently watched the movies.
Yeah. So, Mortal Kombat. It has a good score. It's my new jam, man. It's got, oh my God, it's just got so much going for it. It has very few against it, in my opinion. But then I give a lot of leeway when it comes to nostalgic things sometimes, because it is a product of the 90s. You just get past that, especially when, you were a kid in the 90s, you're a teenager. And when you grow up with, certain things in certain eras, you're just like, okay, so we remember what special effects were in the 90s. We remember how acting, they thought certain things were a good idea at that time. It is not. They learned, hopefully. Some of them haven't. Ever want to hear something funny? Check out Nathan Fillion's acting school thing where he talks about his 3 stages. Did I leave the oven on? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. When he doesn't have dialogue. He told that to Alan Turk. And I will never forget that because, swear to God, the faces he made, I saw him make those in Firefly. But that's totally besides the point. In this, you have Lyndon Ashby. Lyndon Ashby is better known now for playing Stiles Stilinski's father, Sheriff Stilinski, possibly John. We're not sure if he's actually been given a name by the canon or the creators. He's a fantastic actor. He brings a rawness that I enjoy. You know, when he gets angry, you're like, I'm fairly certain he probably scares, you know, people with his intensity because, you know, he gets like really, you know, like honestly angry, not like over the top angry, but like, you know, a way a person honestly gets angry. And I swear to God, there was a scene in this where he's on the boat and he's talking to
Raiden,
Sonia, and Lin Kane. So always the one I mess up the name on. And he's like, he's yelling, it's like, and he's talking about like, this is happening, that's happening, nothing makes sense. And I swear to God, his voice is the same for when he's like telling his son, I swear to God, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, I'm gonna hobble you. It's like the same, like, real anger that I love that he brings. He actually did not have martial arts training before this movie, but he did martial arts training for the movie. And he actually does a lot of his own stunts, which I always give up props for actors who aren't fully, like, when Hugh Jackman wasn't, you know, well known, and it was X-Men 2, and he was jumping off the balcony onto, you know, the thingy below, and, you know, he almost broke his neck one time, I heard, according to a stunt double who was like, oh, crap, because he actually overshot the landing on when he did a jump. But, you know, he just kind of like went for it. He didn't have any training or anything. He just went for it. And the same thing with Lyndon Ashby and a couple other people is I felt like everybody really went for it in this movie. Nobody tried to, like, you know, use a lot of, you know, Hollywood tricks. Yeah, there were a lot of Hollywood tricks, but there was also a lot of, you know, the actual actors in the scenes of the fighting scenes. And I enjoy that.
I think also that the main difference and the reason why this one's a better movie, at least a better fighting movie, is at the end of the day, your main character, who is Liu Kang, he's actually played by a renowned martial arts master. So it's not like you have people play fighting. It's just completely like they picked the star and they went from there, and it's like, okay, like, do this, and then they built the cast around it. And while, as Vanessa mentioned, several of the cast actually rise to the occasion, they very much knew this is going to be a fighting movie. Which,
and they
at the
don't
core,
shy away from fighting, thank God. Unlike other movies we'll be reviewing today, they don't shy away from combat, from fighting, which is the entire, you know, purpose of this. Is there's plot, but the plot's just there so you can have fighting. Let's be honest here. When they made these movies, when they made these games, they were like, okay, we're making a fighting game. They didn't say, oh, we're making this plot. No, the plot came later.
Well, no, actually, in the video game itself, the plot actually is there. Like,
I'm talking about in like the early stages of creating it. Nobody went in to make a game about certain characters. They made in to make a fighting game and then came up with a plot. Usually, this is how. And actually, this Mortal Kombat was supposed to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme game originally. So again, the plot was not there in the beginning. And the idea is that they wanted an arcade game that featured Jean-Claude Van Damme because he was so popular. And so they started, you know, trying to figure out how they could do it. And then something fell through with the licensing.
With the licensing and the fact that I think at the end of the day, part of the thing is not only did the licensing, but at the end of the day, when they actually looked at the overall game that they had in development, it was nowhere near what they could argue would be a Jean-Claude Van Damme.
So Jean-Claude Van Damme became Johnny Cage. This is so much easier name to say, isn't it? I just love saying Johnny Cage.
Yes.
So yeah, they completely changed. They changed a lot of it. And when certain game developers, there are certain things I do know about game developing from different people I know that have informed me over the years, not just you. And a lot of times they'll have a lot of action sequences and they'll completely change the plot, but they'll still use all the action sequences. So when making a game, especially a fighting-based game, the plot is secondary.
No, and I get that. I never said or was saying that it wasn't. I was also referring to the movie, because you then were backtracking, trying to say that you were saying the movie. Never mind, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Best friends.
So, Mortal Kombat. Dun, 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 dun. You know you love it. What did you like most about the movie?
At the end of the day, my favorite actually character in the series is Katana, and she actually doesn't get a whole lot of limelight in the first film at all. But it's actually kind of like the scenes that she actually has, because at the end of the day, well, the fighting is the main purpose of the movie, and it's actually the highlight, and it's definitely what keeps it interesting. I do actually think a lot of the scenes that she actually has with Liu Kang that are stupid and you can argue are kind of pointless and are kind of actually the setup for the second movie, I do think actually that's why they're interesting, is because at the end of the day, it's kind of like this romance that they start that they don't really explain in the first one at all, and that you just kind of see based on chemistry of the actors.
Well, that, and there were certain things said by, oh my god, tell me the main guy's name.
Raiden?
No, the main evil guy that's putting on the combat. Not the Emperor, but...
You mean Shao Tsung?
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Or Shang Tsung. Sorry, Shang Tsung, because it's Shao Kahn.
I'm really bad at this.
Yeah,
So he, at one point in the movie, says, we can't let those two, get together to talk and stuff. Like he's purposely trying to keep Liu Kang
and Katana.
I am sorry. I know I sound like a horrible, ignorant person. I apologize. So they're trying to keep them apart because together is a potentially dangerous thing for them. So it kind of alludes to them being a power couple in the making, in some ways. That's what I got from it when I first saw it, and I didn't really understand much of the Mortal Kombat plot before I saw the movie. So,
well, I mean, like I said, going into it, because going into this movie, they already had the sequel envisioned, because literally the movie ends on a cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. Like, the movie ends on a cliffhanger. You immediately know.
I'm sorry, they're all in a line and like
a really chance for a second one if the first one did, which it did well. That's why they actually made a second one.
You know what's funny? The actors were like totally on board with reprising their roles, and like it kept falling through.
Yeah, the only ones who actually did, I know Liu Kang did.
Mm-hmm.
Katana did. Sonya did not, because it was a different Sonya, and neither did Johnny Cage. But also, it wouldn't have mattered, because if you see the second one, he dies within the first 5 minutes.
That was weird. I think they changed a lot of the plot after.
They had to, and once again, because even when we go into Street Fighter, once again, by the time the second Mortal Kombat movie was made, the game had technically evolved, and there had been sequels at that point, so there was more characters to involve at that point. And so, even while they may have killed off some characters that were loved, or segued off them, or actors that were previously in it, it did open the door to kind of showcase the rest of the universe and go, okay, well, this is also what's left. This is also what exists out there.
Yeah.
Which I know you hate, I'm sorry.
Somebody made a really good point. Mortal Kombat, the first movie, the one we're reviewing, it was made both for fans and for the general audience. The second one was made tailored to fans, and I think that's where it went wrong in a lot of ways.
I would argue that case, because generally, whenever someone tries to make fan service, it either goes really well or it goes horribly. And the main
or problem, it goes both. I've seen that. It's called Naruto. I can't help myself.
I'm going to let you argue with that for a different day with people.
Oh, I already have my anime episode set up. But anyway.
That would be a very interesting argument to watch or see. But I do think when you're trying to do fan service, the bigger the fan service you're doing, the harder it's going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And Mortal Kombat, really, it came down to 3 characters, the heroes. You could argue Raiden, but Raiden's actually more of a background character in the first game.
But he's funny. I think he's great. In the movie, I love how he's just like talking about it's like, or you will die. Sorry. I love that he's always like laughing and then he remembers, oh, that's right, you guys are mortals and this would like really suck if you died. Sorry. He's so funny and the voice is so weird and I just love that. I don't know why. I love the weirdest shit.
Well, because it's good. I mean, it's kind of actually how the movie actually breaks up. I mean, in Mortal Kombat, This is
why you don't have house phones. I like cell phones. Everybody should have a cell phone. Nobody should have a house phone anymore.
Mortal Kombat, at the end of the day, there's not a lot of humor because it's specifically an action flick. It has its moments. There are definitely tender moments. There are definitely moments that you can find funny, but it's not wham bam of humor.
No, but okay, this is. I'm gonna agree with you. Don't worry, it's gonna be okay.
I think you're stepping on my point, though.
Fine, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say it goes into even Raiden. Like that's kind of the comment that he makes because everything that he makes is said and delivered serious, and that's kind of why it's hilarious because it's he's making jokes about them dying, which he doesn't technically believe in, but it's like ha ha ha, just like that boat scene. That boat scene is one of my favorite ones.
Sorry, he doesn't go ha ha. He goes. His laugh is great. I love it.
Again, stepping on the point, but you may continue with your part now.
What I think this movie does a lot better than Street Fighter is it stays true to what the characters are supposed to be. Johnny Cage is supposed to be the comedic relief, and that's what he is. When he's getting off the boat and he's got like all of that luggage because he's a movie star, and he just falls face first into the water, and nobody's gonna help him. And he ends up with like one bag at the end of like that climb up the mountain, and just the different stuff that keeps happening to him, and it's just so funny. And what's great is that you have all that funny in there, but you don't feel like you're watching a comedy, or you don't feel like it's slapstick or it's tongue-in-cheek. Well, it is tongue-in-cheek. Oh, I admit. Johnny Cage is supposed to be tongue-in-cheek. But that's the thing. It's just a part of the movie. It's not the entire movie. Unlike Street Fighter, which is a campy POS that is better watched as a comedy than a
Stepping
movie.
on that point. Stepping on that point. It's bad. She actually can't even hold the bile back in her throat. Like you can actually see it rising right now, coming up. Yeah, no, that's technically we probably should have reviewed the first one first.
No, I like starting out on a positive note and ending with disaster.
Really now? Okay.
So, Mortal Kombat. Can you tell me your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is actually literally the fight between Mortal Kombat and Sub-Zero, and just like even though like the fight is going on, how it flashes. Or actually, is it Sub-Zero? It would be Sub-Zero because it flashes to what Katana, like the brief moments that Katana and Liu Kang share, and she just goes, "Remember that I'm not going to be able to remember the quote. That's going to kill me, but the water is the essence of life."
Oh yeah.
And so basically that's how
he's all like, water!
That's how he actually wins his fight with Sub-Zero, is basically he throws the water, Sub-Zero tries to freeze him, and Sub-Zero freezes himself. And it's just because the reason why that's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is because it's one of the hybrid scenes where it's kind of about that connection, because that's how he truly wins that fight. It's not that he wins because he's the better fighter. It's because of the connection that they had and the talk they had. But it's still also a fight scene. And it's also, compared to what technology was in the 90s, it's still a really cool looking fight scene.
Yeah. For the technology of the time, this movie was really well done. I don't know what their budget was, but they did a good job with it. I know you're going to laugh at me, but my favorite scenes are with Lyndon Ashby.
Not gonna laugh. Not surprised. Not surprised at all.
I like Lyndon Ashby. I think he's a great actor. And I actually went into this not knowing what he was like as a younger actor, which everybody's always different, as they go on with the stages of their life. And he was actually quite different actor back then. But all that aside, the character Johnny Cage and the fight scenes with him and
Scorpion.
Because he's a little more technically thought out. Like when this snake thing is coming after him, and he figures out to stay really still and then move his head at the last second so it could smash into the tree. I thought that was, and then, as he's fighting him in the other universe, parallel, I don't know, the other world, they like jump into a thing. It's weird. Not everything has to make sense, man. So,
well, considering the plot is another dimension is trying to come to Earth realm to take it over, you would assume other dimensions would be involved.
I said other dimensions. So anyway, they jump into another dimension. It makes
sense. It's exactly the plot. Continue.
So they jump into this like other dimension with all of these skulls and bones and stuff and rafters, lots of rafters. And he does some like gymnastic-y martial arts shit. But that aside, what I thought was really cool about those scenes was you could see Johnny Cage thinking how he's going to defeat this guy instead of just going and fighting. And this is what he was warned about in the scene previously, is that you have a tendency to just go headfirst in fighting because you want to prove yourself so badly because people think you're a fake because you're a movie star. And that was a big issue back then for a lot of, in the 80s and 90s. There was an issue for many people who were martial artists in movies, people going, oh, they're not really that good because, they movie magic. So I thought that was an interesting character study, that he, in his first real fight, was already stopping and going, okay, I cannot rush head into this. How do I defeat this? And you could see the wheels turning, and you could see him, fighting and then kind of stopping and thinking and kind of like looking around at like what he can use to his advantage. And later on in the scene with Goro, where he gets Goro to follow him after he does that splits and punches him right in the nads, which was really funny. He, runs up to get to the edge so that way he could use the cliff, because he knows he can't defeat Goro on his own. He's got to like knock him off a ledge because it's fucking Goro, man. So yeah, I like those scenes because it's more than just fighting. It's thinking, how do I use everything to my advantage to take out my opponent?
And the other thing that you're actually not really adding is the fact that it's one of the things that at the end of the day adds realism to this movie. The fact that even though, yes, there are other dimensions in this, you can argue, of course it's not real. It does add the whole thing of like, oh, I'm not just going to beat you until you're a bloody pulp, which would make no sense. I'm going to actually find a way to get you done, basically.
Yeah. And that's the whole point behind Mortal Kombat. It's called Mortal Kombat for a reason. You are a mortal being, and you are fighting things that are quite literally not... Well, they're mortal, but they're very much not human.
No, exactly. That's why the title is the title there.
It feels like that to me. It's what my takeaway is from the movie, okay?
I'm going to let you have this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He knows not to argue with me. So...
I just know when you pick my battles. This is not one of them.
Speaking of battles, which did you like the least?
Honestly, I love Sonya. She's actually one of my favorite characters. But her fight scene was actually...
Yep.
I think the word... Because she's very much... And I hate this because if anyone has actually played any of the games, specifically the original, she is very much a damsel in distress, basically. She has her one scene where she kills the guy that she's after, and then boom, she ends up being the damsel in distress. They have to go rescue her. And so it's like, oh, I couldn't put up a fight. I'm just kidnapped now. And I know that's not exactly how it happens, but it's how it's ridiculous.
That is the takeaway.
That's what you walk with, because it's like, okay.
Also, can I piggyback off that for a second?
Of course you can.
What I didn't like was that she's all this badassness and awesomeness, and the minute she takes one punch, she goes, ah! She literally makes that sound as she's holding her cheek, and I'm like, no, if you're a badass, be a badass.
Which is why, technically, when there is a sequel, even though they actually changed the actors, and I actually do think the first one actually looked more like Sonya Blade, the second one actually does a much better job with the whole acting and the whole fighting thing. Yeah. Just saying. You should watch the sequel anyways.
Yes. Yes, you should.
Did you ever?
No.
You really should.
So speaking of movies that he thinks I should see and I won't, we're going to move on to Street Fighter.
Before we actually get to the person who hates this, and I do mean hates the movie, kept complaining the entire time while we were watching it. No, correction. The first 30 minutes she was silent. The first 30 minutes. And then she got cranky. I do think this movie is a good movie. Specifically the fact that what came before it, and I know she disagrees with me, and she's like thinking in her head right now that like it's a horrible movie.
Oh, if you're gonna get to the point, get to it. If I gotta be quiet.
But at the end of the day, compared to this came out before Mortal Kombat, this was the best that it was prior to this. That being said, this movie has a lot of flaws because at the end of the day, they pegged it as an action movie, and it's not an action movie. It really isn't. You have explosions. Explosions, I know, to a lot of straight males out there, that actually does make an action movie. It's basically a comedy. It's a comedy. You can speak now. Because
Yay!
I know that you hate this.
I like action movies. I like explosions. I said this, my first review with Steph. We're chicks. We like explosions too. This movie is a campy piece of shit. So, why do I think it's a campy piece of shit? Because it is. So let's just go down the list of why. Jean-Claude Van Damme is acting, or what he thinks acting is.
I will at least give her this point that the role that he actually plays is Guile, and the main problem is Guile's an American soldier. He should not have an accent.
They even have like this American flag like tattoo on him, and he's got like this thick accent that he cannot get rid of. Nor should he, because he is what he is, and that's fine. But dude, just fight. Don't try and talk. You're one of those.
Sorry. I think it was in his contract that he had to talk, though, Vanessa, since he technically was a star, unfortunately for you. Continue. What was your second point why you hated this movie?
It was over the top ridiculous. I mean, everything from the villains to the heroes to the plot to the act, the colors, the costumes, the special, everything was over the top.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think once again the problem is, once again, Mortal Kombat actually was released, the video game was released in 1992, and the movie was released in 1986. So there wasn't a lot of time to actually put the movie together, come up with the plot, and truly do it. Street Fighter actually debuted in 1987. The film came out in 1985. There had been... Fine, 1988. Still, we're talking about a 7-year difference versus a 4-year difference, and at the end of the day, there had been several Street Fighters introduced, so they had eventually enough characters to hang themselves. Because, like we're saying,
they did often,
because they introduced practically everyone that existed at the time. DJ's there, Vega's there, like the random characters that have no backstory and are just there to be in this movie.
And mind you, Mortal Kombat has, more characters than it plays with. It really only plays off of the 3, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade. Doctor's name, Sonya Blade. And
Liu Kang.
And there are more characters in the game at that time, and they did introduce them in more of like, they were other people who were there. They just either didn't have speaking parts or they had like one line, and that was perfect because you don't want to make a cumbersome plot with too many backstories that you have to explain in such a short amount of time. When you have 3 main characters and 1 main villain with some henchmen that don't really need to be explained, you have more time to develop the plot and to develop, what you need to do. When you're trying to explain everybody, their backstory, their mothers, their great-grandmas, that's when you get literally a clusterfuck that is Street Fighter.
Still don't entirely agree with her rendition of the movie, but I do agree with the point that she's making. That's the main problem. I mean, all the interesting characters. Chun-Li's a very interesting character.
She never spins upside down.
She does do other things. She is played by Ming-Na, and she is one of the few, even though I'm biased because she is one of my favorite actresses. I actually even have her autograph.
She's one of my favorite too. I think she's a fantastic actress. I think whatever direction they told her to go in was the wrong direction. I don't think it was her fault.
Well, but see, I also think at the end of the day, for most of the characters, she's one of the few ones that truly actually progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the problem, because generally speaking, during the movie, it's going to progress at some point. You have the
You have to
character
have character
beginning,
development.
and then you have to have the development that allows them to change. And really, she doesn't really ever truly change. It's just you find out everything that she's hidden. So she's a journalist, then you actually find out, like, oh, like, I do this, and then all of a sudden she's impersonating, like, which gives her no reason why all of a sudden she's impersonating these people and have found the thing other than a
That I was
tracker.
actually okay with.
And then, like, and you can kind of follow the plot because they're not huge plot holes, because then you have to temporarily think, oh, she put the tracking device. That's right, when she got into the ninja suit and all this stuff. But she's the only one who really has development. I mean, Guile, the entire movie, is just like, I'm in charge. I'm going to kick his ass the entire time. That's his entire progression.
Yep.
He doesn't progress.
Yep.
He basically
He's
starts
Jean-Claude Van Damme from beginning to end.
Yeah, basically. And everyone else, it's the same thing. Like, you could argue Ryu and Ken change because they're kind of like stupid con men at the beginning, and then they become like less stupid con people at the end.
But can I say one thing about Ryu and Ken?
Of course.
Bad. Well, okay, Ryu, not so bad. Ken, horrible acting choice. Horrible choice of actor. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. I'm just saying that was bad acting. I usually try and be nice, but this movie really pissed me off, and I wanted that 2 hours of my life back.
The one thing they at least did peg, though, is these two are students together. They studied under the same sensei, and Ken is technically the more irrational one. So at least that was one of the few things they did right. Is Ken's the more in trouble, and you actually find out, like, when they start changing, Ryu's the one pushing for it, because Ryu's technically the honorable one, the one who's more out there. I know it's not enough to redeem it, but
this
still.
plot in other movies done better. No, I've seen this exact plot in other movies done better.
With the whole clusterfuck of people?
No, the whole, we are both friends and, grew up together, and I'm kind of the good one and you're kind of the not so good one, and I'm kind of pushing you to be the good one. That plot point has been used in many movies, and I've seen it done way better.
No, but still, I mean, like, that was the point I was trying to make. Like, I get it's been done before. It's one of the few things that they pegged right, because most of these people are just dressed up like people, like Cammy.
They're not dressed up like people. They're dressed up like characters, but okay, go on.
But still, not even really the characters, because, like, Cammy takes the entire movie before she actually looks remotely like Cammy, and even then it's stupid. It's really stupid. Dollism never really becomes Dollism. He actually inexplicably loses his hair finally.
Yeah.
Just because he was doused with ingredients that technically didn't make someone else lose their hair, but apparently in this actor they made him lose his hair randomly.
This is what I'm going to go with. There were 4 bags of colorful chemicals that had funny names. And that's another reason why this movie was over the top and campy, is they couldn't even take that seriously. If you're going to go that path, go that path. I like science fiction when it's taken more seriously than this. So what fell on him was the green.
Actually, the green and the pink, they all fell, if you looked at the same.
I was watching. The green exploded from the bag and onto him more than the others.
The others did explode on him. Continue.
I'm trying to find a way to actually defend this movie for once. Can you let me?
I'm not sure you'd let me forgive yourself later.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a bad movie.
Because she actually started to during the movie, and then she's like, wait a minute, why am I defending it?
Yeah.
And that was after I actually gave her the reasoning, because she started to give it.
It's just not a good movie. I don't recommend it.
And I think also the one thing that this movie does suffer from, even though I do think the movie is fun, and I do think people should at least try it to find out whether or not they like
Stormtroopers is fun. This movie makes me want to take a cheese grater to the side of my face.
Well, it's also because at the end of the day, like, since it's an action film, you'd actually would expect it to have action. This has like 2 to 5 minute shots of action thrown throughout until it finally gets to the ending arc, where all the action and all the intricate fights are. But you had to get there. You had to wait. You had to wait basically an hour and 30 minutes.
What did I say when we got to the actual good fighting?
Oh, her exact words were, "I'm too fucking bored to even care."
I was so fucking done with this movie that when they finally got to the good shit, I'm like, I checked out. I checked out so long ago, guys. You had an hour and a half.
She was very vocal, by the way. The entire time that she was done with this movie, very, very, very vocal. Very vocal.
Yeah, I was.
Yes, she was.
And that's why I watch certain things in the privacy of my own home and not the theater.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I'm going to let you go now and not choke you.
It's been a choky kind of day. So, what was your favorite scene from this DVD?
Any part that had me nut in it. Specifically, also, even though it was slightly over the top, her fight scene with Bison, because at the end of the day, this is how ridiculous, because apparently, like, I'm pretty sure somewhere in the contract that Jean-Claude Van Damme actually signed, it said that he had to be the one to beat M. Bison, which is stupid and ridiculous because he's actually one of the worst people that should try to beat M. Bison within the actual video game. She actually almost has him beaten by herself. You actually find out at this part, her big plotline, like, she planned everything. She planned on getting caught. She planned on doing this. She's kicking his ass, and then all of a sudden, like, her little ragtag
We're all coming to save you! Oh,
like,
sorry, we interrupted.
And then he gets away, and he gasses them, and they get knocked out. And she's like, she had him. She had him.
She could have ended that movie so early for me.
And, like, it would have been done 20 minutes prior to, like, it would have been 20 minutes shorter. Like, it would have ended
okay
happier for me because I would have preferred to actually see her beat him because she is one of my all-time Street Fighter characters, but at the end of the day, like, if you actually play the game and you actually watch the stories, like when they beat M. Bison, like in the very first one or even the sequels, she's really one of the few people who actually truly has a reasoning. Guile's whole original reasoning is, I'm doing this for my personal revenge. That's why I can't let you have your personal revenge because mine's more important. Because
every time he spoke, the only reason my TV survived is because I don't own it. It came with the apartment.
His entire reason, I think you actually might find this funny, that I think this is, he's very mad because Charlie got taken, who has 3 names apparently in this movie, and they turned him into Blanca, which actually technically also isn't supposed to work in the game because Blanca is actually established as someone else.
But you said Charlie became a playable character later on after this movie.
He did, but in the very first
my only defense of this entire fucking movie.
In the very first Street Fighter, though, it did reveal his mom, who raised him because he had an anklet on. That's his ending, and she's like, "Oh," she's like, "Son, I found you," and it's a very weird ending. For playing the video game, so which revealed that he couldn't have been Charlie. But the one thing that's actually kind of funny about this is because, like, when he's going in his boat to, like, go, like, he puts a tape in, like, it features, like, what I'm assuming is supposed to be his wife and him and Charlie and his wife, and, like, it just kind of features on Charlie all of a sudden. It's kind of like this little gay moment that makes no sense in the entire movie.
That was a Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, all those other fuckers, and my dad watches too many of those movies. They all do that stupid shit. They did that in G.I. Joe.
I never watched G.I. Joe.
I did. It's another 2 hours of my life I can't get back.
So you don't want to watch any of the sequels? I'm so
As long as you don't want people murdered, I will stay away.
Can I give you a list?
Like my bed.
Can
I
give you a list of people to kill here?
No. So, not on film. It's documented shit, man. Okay, so what is your least favorite part of the movie? My least favorite part of the movie was
anything that had
the movie.
Oh, well, I was going to say anything that had Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. Even supposedly.
I love Raul Julia. He will always be Gomez Addams to me. I think he's a fantastic actor. I'm really sad that we lost him very early in his career, and
he's also one of the few people who actually gets his part down.
Yeah.
Crazy sociopath.
He does that well. But I couldn't even enjoy his scenes. This movie was so badly made. This movie was probably very badly directed. I want to put a lot of the weight of this hate on the director.
I also think, though, at least for scenes for me, it was the majority of the scenes Jean-Claude Van Damme, specifically his Bison fight.
Specifically his dialogue.
No, specifically. The epitome of this movie is actually featured in this fight, which they wasted too much time on. Because, Chun-Li had him beat, like, almost 2 minutes, and she was by herself. I don't care if all of a sudden he comes back and he starts shooting electricity at you. Like, you wait, like, 5 minutes while you're getting your ass kicked before you finally kick him in the air, which you could have done, like, 3 minutes prior. Like, it's so stupid. It's like, oh my god. How on earth did you beat him the first time, you whore? Just die already. Like, that would have actually, and technically I think also the last disappointing scene was when he actually escaped the base alive. I preferred the Morningham.
That worked better for me too.
Oh, and then he hit on Chun-Li at the end, and I felt so sorry for Ming Na. That was also true.
Yeah. He hit on anybody, but... So, overall, thumbs up, thumbs down, Street Fighter. Or I could give the Street Fighter. Because
I will still give it a thumbs up for all its flaws.
There you go.
For all its flaws, for everything, I still enjoy the movie. Because at the core, for what it was at the time, because once again, you have to remember, it came before Mortal Kombat.
A year.
But, I mean, also, at the end of the day, though, they had, at the time, they had more characters. They had more things. It was more involved of a mess, and they were trying to actually do it the wrong way, but still, compared to the movies that came before it, Double Dragon, Super Mario Brothers, I mean, you compare them to the ones that came before them, it made a better showcase. And I do think the highlights, the few that there are, for me at least, between the actors who do them, that makes it enough for me to watch it. Plus, I actually do find a lot of it hilarious, because like I said, do not watch this if you are looking for an action film. If you are looking for a comedy, then you should watch it. Because it takes
looking for campy.
With plastic swords that you can tell are plastic. That apparently magically get thrown into wood and stay there.
Oh! Okay.
By the way, it was actually one of the few times in the movie she was actually going to be interested, because when the first fight happened between Vega and Ryu, and it looked like there's actually going to... By the way, there was also a lot of shirt ripping off in this movie. Like, they rip it off of Ryu, they rip it off this, they just...
Yeah, the shirt ripping was a little excessive.
They don't even really rip the shirts in the game, and then like all of a sudden it's like, boom! But I still love this movie. Do I obviously think Mortal Kombat is its superior? Yes, of course I do.
So our Deserted Island movie pick is Mortal Kombat.
Yes, it would be, without a doubt. Although I do not hate one movie as much as you do, because I do not hate it.
Can I just like wipe it from my brain after this podcast?
Sure, I will go get
brain bleach.
The drill. Well, so do we have to take the bad memories up somehow? We're just gonna drill straight to your cord. Remove the infected lobe.
The trend I've started is that I'd like to end with recommending something not based off movies. So this week, guess what? We're recommending games! What are your recommendations, Jonathan?
There are two games. Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3, it's actually part of the trilogy of the Mass Effect series. Very popular. Yes.
Is Mass Effect 3 the one where you can play as the chick as Shepard?
You can play throughout the chick Shepard throughout the entire series.
Cool. I like them already.
Just because, well, it's still very much got, out of all three, it's basically the conclusion. So why, of course, we do not play the conclusion. It does have the best combat system. The other thing, though, is even though the game was released years ago, it still actually has a very active multiplayer function that you can still play to this day. The servers are still up. It's still going. It's not as competitive as it used to be, so you can definitely, even if you're a beginner, you can actually get in there. I actually played with someone who just actually started last night and was asking kinds of questions, and I felt kind of bad for her because it actually found like she had been in groups before, and either because a lot of girls, especially if you are playing an online game and you don't know anyone, you generally won't talk because then it causes issues. But because I have this voice, she assumed I was a girl, and I was also playing with someone else at the time, so we were talking back and forth, and so she started interjecting and asking questions, and she probably thought I was a girl, which is fine. Doesn't hurt me that much, kind of a little bit.
He's very
but
much a man.
It's really a good game. The other one, though, is if you do like fighting games, Injustice. Injustice actually was released for the PS3 and Xbox 360. There's also an All-Stars version. I actually recommend you get that.
I still need to watch you play that because I want to see all the...
That way you actually get all the DLC characters like Zatanna, so cheap but so lovable. Who would not want to play Zatanna? And that one actually, not only is it a fighting game, but it also does have an intricate story mode that you can play to actually get how they came up with the concept for the game. Of the fact that they just wanted to watch DC characters smash each other's heads and throw bombs and pies, mallets at each other.
My recommendations are for those of you, like me, who aren't very good at games. So, I have two recommendations. Fable 2, get past the first tutorial bullcrap because it's really annoying and you kind of want to kill Rose.
And if you play with someone who's actually bad at video games, you want to kill yourself the entire time because they'll complain about the game and ask why on earth this was bought for them.
Once you're past that, it's great. Honest. I do swear. I do swear. Because you don't feel like you really have choices during the tutorial, but after that you do. It's very story-based. It's very choice-based. So there's a lot of ways to play it. You can play it several times and get different things out of it. I like things that allow that possibility. The other recommendation I have is Mario 64 for DS.
I didn't realize they actually turned that into a DS game. That'd actually be interesting.
Hand me my DS. I want to make sure I'm saying the name of the game right. Nope, my DS.
No,
yeah.
Duh, sorry.
So let's see here. So I always have it. No, wait, that's Zelda. I tried playing Zelda one day because it was free. I think it's you remember Mario 64?
No, I remember N64. I just didn't realize.
That's like the only thing I play on my DS.
I didn't realize they turned it into a DS game. That'd actually be very interesting.
It is, and they actually added a lot more to it. There's an entire part of the castle that wasn't in the original version that has so many more places to go and more to do in the game. Just find somebody who's really good to like figure out how to make the water level go down, because I never figured that out and I had a boyfriend when I got it. Hey, at least I admit this shit.
See, I wouldn't mind finding a boyfriend, but I'm not sure that he'd play my games for me. I'd rather he play games with me or things like that, or at least video games.
I can make that very sexual very quickly, and you don't want me to on there. So, we're going to end this.
Never mind. Never mind, folks. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see at all.
So, this is Jonathan. He can be reached
jfalkey@gmail.com.
And I'm Vanessa Cozini. I can be reached at Crazy for Cult. And we've been crazy.
Yes, we have.